Hey, gang. Welcome to another segment of Bookends. He's Jason. I'm Chucky. This is our buddy Teaser here, and we're going to talk some divisional playoffs. But before we get into that, we're just going to recap Wild Card Weekend a little bit. It was a Wild Card Weekend. You had a lot of favorites come in. You had some come-from-behind victories, and you had the Cleveland Browns, after that long playoff drought, get up to a 28-0 lead against the Pittsburgh Steelers before they ultimately won the game. They didn't have their coach that day. I guess no coach, no problem. Kevin Stefanski, due to COVID, actually watched the game in his basement on Sunday night. Wonder if he'll watch the game in his basement this Sunday. I don't think so. He's actually up for Coach of the Year, but it was a wild weekend, Jay.
Yeah, Saturday, the games went over, but Saturday was a really good day for the Bucs, and then Sunday, kind of two big winners. On Sunday morning, we were lucky to keep those games under, and then obviously the big Browns upset on Sunday as well was good for us. But it was a good weekend for the house. But now we turn over to divisional weekend, and we see those teams that traditionally come back from their bye weeks do really well, and obviously we're adding the Packers and Chiefs back into the mix, and those I think are Super Bowl favorites at this time. So let's jump right into it.
All right, real quick to the national championship game Monday. I mean, it was a lot of points. We talked about it. I mean, I actually took your line on a few different interviews and said the scoreboard operator might need a Red Bull, and that was the case, although it fell right at 76 and total opened up at 76.5. But kudos to Alabama. That offense with Devonta Smith and Mac Jones and just the way that they played was unbelievable. I mean, they are a powerhouse. Congratulations to Alabama, and bettors did well in that game as that number definitely crept up throughout the course of the day.
Yeah, and I think they were Ohio State was lucky that Devonta Smith broke his finger or dislocated his finger at halftime there. He was about to set. Well, he set record numbers even though he only played a half, but he could have put up 20 catches and 300 or 400 yards in that game. The way that he was just constantly wide open, and like you said, kudos to Alabama, an undefeated season, and it's over and done with, and look for those national championship football odds to be posted soon for next year.
That was one of those games, too, where you saw a lot of money line play on the dog, but a lot of point spread play on the favorite. For our side, we actually had the ability for a little bit of a middle there, but really you saw a lot of push on Alabama late in the day, and it kind of drove that number up, so the bettors did well in that game. Yep. I'm going to jump into the divisional round now, guys, and as Jason mentioned, Packers and Chiefs are back in it. First game on Saturday, Rams-Packers. Interesting matchup. I mean, it's at Lambeau Field. No fans. Still a really tough place to play. Might be a little bit chilly. You look at the Rams side of it, and, I know it looks like it's going to be Jared Goff, and he played okay in the playoff game. I think they won against Seattle. Wolford was the guy, though, that McVay decided to go with. So it was obvious that Goff was healthy. Cooper Kupp's a little bit banged up. Aaron Donald's a little bit banged up. I think they're both going to play. Still a tough place to play, but you've seen this number actually with the Packers having their bye. You've seen this number come down. I think the Packers are just a good team all the way around, but if any team can give them problems, I think it's a defense like the Rams. When you've got a guy like Aaron Donald to put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and you've got a shutdown corner like Jalen Ramsey who can get into Devontae Adams' face and take him out of the game, that's probably why we're seeing that number come down a little bit, because of the Rams' defense more so than the Rams' offense.
Yeah, and I think with the Rams, you can kind of continue to monitor as we get later in the week and check the health stat of those guys. Kupp probably being the biggest one. I think Donald's going to be expected to play, just a matter of how close to 100% he's at. You talked about this defense, a championship defense, being able to pull the upset of Seattle last week. Again, a team that they were very, very familiar with, a divisional opponent that they play twice a year, that they've played well, and Seattle has kind of pulled out late in those games. So I don't think it was a shock to see the Rams stay in that game and be able to win that game.
Actually, the public bet them. I mean, they were one of the dogs that they really bet. You saw the point spread come down and the money line because the public was heavy on the Rams.
This defense, again, it's a championship defense. It does have a little bit of a road and home and road split, though. They average about 18 points a game, but they've allowed their last 4 road games. Actually, I think their last 6 road games, they've allowed 20 points or more. So they have been a little bit allowing a lot more points on the road, and that's because I think the offense actually has more turnovers on the road. I think they're averaging 1.4 turnovers on the road a game, which is close to like what the Jets and Bengals do in their road performances. So high turnovers coming from the Rams, and if they do that in this type of game and give Rodgers those extra shots, it's not going to bode well. And it'll be interesting to see. You talked about Jalen Ramsey. Does he match up with Devonta Adams?
I think he has to.
Or does he hold down a side of the field and stuff like that? And the Packers, they've got loads of weapons, and if you take one guy away, Rodgers will just kind of pick another one, and he's been awesome in the playoffs with lack of turning the ball over. So I think for the Rams to stay in this game, they're going to have to not have their turners, try and turn Rodgers over a time or two, and they're going to have to do what they do best, which is run the football. We've seen the Packers struggle on defense with stopping that run, and that's what knocked them out of the playoffs last year. So if the Rams can get that ground game going, they have a chance to stay in this game.
Well, I know you and I have talked about it week after week, is that, look at Ramsey or look at Adams, how dominant he is. You have to put somebody over the top, and we saw Ramsey really take Metcalf out of the game for Seattle twice this year. I mean, just dominate him. So yeah, I have to imagine that he's going to be on Devontae Adams, and he's going to have to move from side to side. You're right about
one of the things. I think there's a big difference between Metcalf and Adams. Metcalf is that downfield threat. You have to respect that speed. You have to respect that size when you get down the field. Adams is so shifty at that line of scrimmage. He doesn't have to beat you 12 and 15 yards down the field. He can beat you 3 yards
and take
off
the
line of
right,
scrimmage and then go. And so he's that type of receiver, that, those one-of-a-kind receivers that I think you got to put somebody in his face and you got to put somebody over the top, and you let Jalen Ramsey man up somebody else. You put him man-on-man on a MVS or Lazard or something like that, and then you put the two guys on Adams. But it'll be interesting to see how the Rams play.
Yeah, I mean, for me, right now, Adams is the best receiver in football. Ramsey is the best DB in football, so we'll see how it all shakes out. And I think you look at the Packers. Last year they played in the NFC Championship game, just got dominated by San Francisco, who ran the ball a lot in that game. And you have to think Aaron Rodgers, they drafted Jordan Love. Maybe he's got a little bit of that chip on his shoulder. Favre won one Super Bowl. He's got one ring so far. He's got another opportunity to get there. They're the number one seed in the NFC, but we have seen that number come down a little bit.
One last thing there, too, is obviously we're not going to essentially the frozen tundra up in Green Bay. I think there's actually going to be pretty good weather that they're having there. But again, Rams coming out from
still a little chillier than LA.
Playing in the 60s right, to probably in the upper 30s in Green Bay. Don't discard what the weather is going to be like for the road challenge for the Rams.
Right. The late game now on Saturday. This is the game that I'm really looking forward to watching. It's the Ravens and Bills, two teams that were able to win last week. The Ravens fell behind 10-0 to the Titans. Were able to come back in that game, which hasn't been their MO. We talked about it last week. Lamar Jackson 0-2 in bowl games at Louisville, 0-2 in playoff games with the Ravens. Maybe this is something that kind of catapults him to that next level. The one kind of Achilles heel of the Bills is they haven't done well against teams that have run this year. And you look at Baltimore with Dobbins and Jackson and Gus the Bus Edwards, and if they activate Ingram, they are a strong running team. It could give Buffalo some problems. Buffalo had lost their last 3 trips to the wild card. They hadn't been in the playoffs in a long time. They're allowing about 7,000 fans in the game. Indy said last week there were 6,700 fans there. They said it felt like 42,000. So the Buffalo Mafia is definitely coming out in force in backing this Bills team. It's Josh Allen, who I think could have been MVP this year. It'll probably go to Rodgers against the reigning MVP in Lamar Jackson. This is a great matchup. Number actually dipped. Originally, we saw some early action on the Ravens, starting to come back now in favor of the Bills. But this is the game that I really want to watch. I think both these two teams are good enough to play on that first Sunday in February.
Yeah, two young star quarterbacks, two really the hottest teams in the league. I think the Bills have won 7 straight games. The Ravens have won 6 straight games. Ravens, get over the hump of knocking off their nemesis, the Titans, who knocked them out last year. Bills obviously get a playoff win for the first time in a long time. You talked about the difference this game is going to be that Buffalo Bills defense versus that number 1 rushing offense for the Ravens. And this game's going to be cold. Again, a Saturday night up in Buffalo, probably going to be in the 20s. And
Fun
I think
to
there's
watch, right?
Expected to be some potential wind, 10 to 20 mile an hour wind. So check that weather forecast, because if you're the Bills,
that hurts more with Allen, because right, Jackson's more of a running quarterback.
You're hoping that that wind doesn't show up, so that you can have that Diggs and the connection there and not have to depend on the run, because Zach Moss, the 1A and 1B running back
right,
for the Bills, is going to be out for this game. So it's going to be really the Singletary show coming out of that backfield. But I expect this to be the Josh Allen show, and not a lot of running, and let him kind of scramble and find those open targets and see if they can exploit that secondary. That Ravens secondary is beatable. They haven't been exceptional on the back end. But like I said, the start and end of this game is, can the Bills stop Dobbins and Edwards and Lamar Jackson from running the football? I think this is the game of the week. I think
Me
this
too.
Is,
I can't wait to watch
one
this
you said
game,
this is
right.
the game that you got circled. This is, the game opened. We opened at 3 even, got bet down. I think it went as low as 2, and then it's coming back up. It actually coming back up when it started to talk about some of the cold weather and that Lamar Jackson's never actually played in the snow and the cold. So we'll see how it shakes out. But I think this one's going to be one of the more exciting games to watch this weekend.
And if it is really cold like that and the wind's a factor, I mean, that could hurt with Justin Tucker too. Best kicker in football, but when it's wind, that's the one thing they say usually hurts a kicker. But yeah, it's a great matchup. I love these two teams. I think you look at Baltimore, and although they've won 6 games in a row, the end of the season was really favorable to them. They played the Jags, the Giants, I think the Bengals. They had a really favorable schedule that set up well for them. But this is a great matchup with these two teams.
On both these teams, you could pick some holes of looking who they played down the stretch. Even last week with Buffalo pulling out the win, they were really outplayed by the Indianapolis Colts. If you go back and really look at that game, the Colts
made kind of
they missed a field goal,
right,
didn't go for a field goal. So I think that they actually were in the red zone, almost on every possession during that game that they had the ball on offense. And Rivers didn't make any mistakes. And you talk about it. You talked about it in the first game. You talk about it in this game. Playoffs are decided by turnovers. So we'll see which one of these guys cannot turn the ball over, and that might lead to their team winning.
I think you get a better game out of these two teams. A lot of times for a young team or a team that has some pressure, it's winning that first playoff game. And you look again at Jackson. He hadn't won anything, and everyone was talking about it. No bowl wins, no playoff wins. Now he wins that game. And Buffalo, who had lost 3 years in a row in the wild card round, or 3 of the last 4 years, now they get that win too with a young quarterback and Josh Allen. They're at home. I think you relax a little bit more in a game like this. I know there's a lot at stake, but you still have won that first playoff game. We're going to go over to Sunday now. Early game is Browns-Chiefs. We know Andy Reid. I mean, there is not a better coach coming off that bye than Andy Reid. His success with the Eagles and now with the Chiefs. They're defending champs. They're playing a Cleveland Brown team that I don't think most people felt they could go in and win a game like that in Pittsburgh. You look at Baker Mayfield. That's been a struggle for him playing in Heinz Field. I don't think he ever threw for more than 225 yards. He usually was a turnover machine. They got up 28-0. Had to sweat a little bit. It looked like, late in that game when Pittsburgh cut it to 11 that it's only a matter of time until Pittsburgh comes back. But that running duo of Chubb and Hunt played great. I thought Mayfield played really good in that game with Jarvis Landry. They're the biggest dog on the board here, but they can run the ball. Kansas City hasn't covered in 8 straight weeks. They've become much more one-dimensional. It's all passing. They might have Hilaire back in this game. But I think it's an interesting matchup because of the number. And it's a young Cleveland team with nothing to lose.
Yeah, you might see some trick plays. You might see some Landry passes, and who knows what's
He's a good passer, right, yeah.
But, yeah, Andy Reid, you talked about, I think it's 23-3 is his record straight up coming out of a bye week. And I think he's 6-0 with Mahomes coming out of a bye week. So, this is why you play so hard during the regular season to get that bye and get home field advantage. You talked about it. The Chiefs have been winning games tight, not being able to cover. So a big double-digit 10-point spread. That's a big number. But that back end of that Cleveland secondary, while they got the big lead, we saw Roethlisberger throw for 500 some yards and record number of completions and stuff like that. But they did get the 4 interceptions was the big thing. They're going to have to do the same thing this week to Mahomes to be able to stay in this game. And don't forget, there's a guy on Cleveland with a chip on his shoulder as well, and Kareem Hunt, who was let go by the Chiefs, I think it's about 2 years ago now, after having some legal issues and serving his suspensions. The Browns picked him up, but Kareem Hunt got this game circled. He said it's personal to him, so look for Hunt to play with a little chip on his shoulder this week as well.
I think that's the key for Cleveland, is being able to maybe control clock a little bit and run the ball. And you talk about Chubb and Hunt; they've got 2 really talented running backs there, so it's going to be fun. But they are the biggest dog on the board.
The thing about them beating the Steelers last week is obviously you get the snap over Roethlisberger, the punter's head, and it was Roethlisberger's head.
Yeah,
and you fall in the end zone, you're 7-0. So you talk about going into Heinz Field, a place that you can't play, and now you're gifted with this 7-0 lead, and then they get the turnover and run for a touchdown. That was the key, and so you've got to get that early, really good start so that you can get that running game going. If they fall behind 7-0 or 10-0 the cheats, and now it's got to be in Mayfield's arm, and it's out of the game plan of going to Hunt and Chubb. That's the game plan that Cleveland doesn't want to go into. So the key thing is going to be that first quarter. Can Cleveland stay in the game in the first quarter and be able to run the football?
Well, the Chiefs fell behind last year in the playoffs against the Titans. Were able to come back and win that game, so we'll see how this plays out. Another late game on Sunday, and very similar to Saturday for me. This is the game that I have circled on Sunday. I mean, you talk about the Bucs and Saints. Talk about everything that Brady and Breeze has achieved achieved in their careers. Brady had never been a wild card quarterback before. He had always been a division winner. He wins the first wild card game in Washington. Washington played really well in that game, but Brady had a really good game. Now they're playing against the Saints. Saints dominated them twice this year. Won week 1, which Brady was kind of getting acclimated to everything with his team. But then they played late in the year, and the Saints just beat him up. I mean, they dominated that game. That defense was in his face all game. But it's not the same offense for the Saints. They've still had some struggles. Kamara's healthy. Michael Thomas is healthy. It's an interesting matchup because one of these two teams has an opportunity to be one game away from the Super Bowl, and that's Bree. Similar to Rodgers, has one ring. They've talked about this might be his last year. And Brady would like nothing more than to have a chance to be one game away from the Super Bowl. They beat Green Bay once this year already. Super Bowl happens to be in Tampa. But this number's come down. You've seen this number open up around town as high as 5.5. It's been bet all the way down to a field goal. So pretty one-sided action in favor of Tampa so far against a team that beat them twice during the regular season.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how much these offenses trust these guys in this game, and do they just let them go back and let it loose and throw the ball around? I think that Tampa is a much different team than what they were the first 2 times they played the Saints. I think the kind of the growth of Antonio Brown over the last several weeks is going to change that offense a little bit. We got Godwin back. Evans expected to be back. Gronkowski really hasn't done any damage against the Saints. The Saints' linebacking core is absolutely fantastic and kind of takes him out of the game. So I expect this to be more of a wide receiver game, but I think Antonio Brown could be the difference maker on that back end. The big thing for the Bucs in this game is being able to protect Tom Brady. They've struggled against the Saints in the fact that the Saints have been in his face and he hasn't been able to have any time to throw the ball downfield. So that'll be the key for the Bucs in this game is can they keep Brady?
I think in the last matchup, didn't they fall behind 21 or 28-0 too? I think they fell way behind early in that game and it had to play catch up and really were never in that game.
Yeah, and no running game.
And Jones might not play.
Ronald Jones has had the finger issue. Fournette was decent last week, but they're going to have to establish the run game to stay in this. And the Saints, they're getting their weapons back, and it's like they kind of continue to develop weapons. We saw Harris come out of nowhere last week. Jared Cook has been kind of a thorn in the Bucs side with the Saints. He's had some pretty good games against them. But I think at the end of the day, I think this is going to come down to the defense and the kickers, and whether it's Suckup or Lutz, somebody making a big kick at the end, because we've seen both these guys can have GOAT status on them, and I think it'll be exciting to see, regardless of who wins this game. It's which one of these guys can potentially pull an upset if it happens to be the Packers to get to the Super Bowl in their writing their script out of the NFL. Again, Breeze and Brady have been quarterbacks that have been in the league for our entire lives, what seems like, and you've been cheering for these guys or against these guys. So to watch one of them fall out, will be a little bit sad, but we'll see the one that can go on. But these are two guys that you can't help but cheer for.
This might be one of those games that it's within a score, and the last quarterback to get the ball is going to have a chance to win it in Breeze or Brady. So, guys, they are phenomenal divisional playoff games this weekend. 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sundays. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up yet for the STN mobile app, now is a great time, up to a $100 bonus. Trustworthy, reliable. We've been around for a long time. There's a great bonus, and it really does bring the sportsbook to the palm of your hand.
Yeah, and you need it with what's going on right now. We just had hockey back on the ice now this week. The NBA is.
Should we say it together? It's nighttime.
We saw a huge trade in the NBA with Harden leaving Houston and going to the Nets, making them kind of the number 2 favorite just behind the Lakers in that Eastern Conference. So and college basketball has been really, really good, really competitive games.
You think we'll be able to put totals up high enough on the Nets games? Is there enough balls to go around with Harden and Kyrie and Durant there? I mean, wow. They don't have a lot of height, but, man, they can score some points.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a great time of year. And, again, for just the personal stake to get hockey back on the ice and to be able to watch those guys and cheer for the Knights and talk about the props that, when we were doing with the Raiders and Knights. I think you'll find that we've got all the key guys, our new captain, Stone and Pacioretty and Marchessault and Carlson and Riley Smith. We've got, will those guys score a goal props up in all these games. So as Knight fans, make sure you get those apps so that you can have some fun on nighttime game times and cheer for your favorite players.
Yeah, it's so much fun now with the Knights playing, late at night, a lot of their start times, and interesting to see how the goalie tandem works out. I mean, I think you have a huge advantage over so many teams when you can put Leonard or Fleury between the pipes, every other night, especially with all these Friday-Sunday, Friday-Saturday type games. I think it's going to be fun to watch. So, guys, don't forget again, all the divisional playoff games. You've got pro basketball, hockey going on, college basketball. Get signed up for STN Mobile. New signups up to a $100 bonus. Great time of year. Come out and have some fun. We'll get you signed up for that mobile app. Just a matter of minutes. He's Jason. I'm Chucky. This is our buddy Teaser. Have a great week. We'll see you next week on Bookends.